Hi there, Europe and beyond. It's Eurovision Ireland, and we're back. Everybody wave. You know the score. We have James.
Hi, everyone.
We have Bogdan.
Hi, everyone.
We have Sarah.
Hi, everyone.
We have Richard.
Hi, everyone.
We have me, John, and Staggy may will pop up at the most unexpected times as well. What we're going to do today is review the 6 songs that have made the Irish national final that is going to be broadcast on Friday, the 4th of February at 9:35 Dublin time in the Late Late Show slot. The Late Late Show slot, and that's not an easy thing to say. We're each going to take a song to review. We're going to take 2 songs, and we'll just tell you what we think. Now, 320 songs were submitted to RTE, and through a series of panels, they've narrowed it down to this final 6. Who knows? There could be another winner on their hands. Hopefully, Ireland can make the final. That's the aim, because it's a bit of a, it's an aim to make the final these days, to get through the semi-finals. So we'll take the songs, no particular order. The first one we're going to look at is the one from Brendan Murray. Now, as we know, Brendan has taken part before. He was there in 2017 with the song Dying to Try, coincidentally written by a certain James Newman, current by a certain James Newman. So he's got form in Eurovision, and he's also taken part in the 2018 edition of the UK's X Factor, and he made the semi-final. So the song this time is called Real Love, and he's co-written it with Daryl Coyle. Now, I'm going to lead on this one. Now, it's typical what I would expect of Brendan. It's a soft, slow ballad, a bit like Dying to Try, that suits his voice. It's nicely constructed. It's got a nice, simple lyric. So if your first language isn't English, then it might help. It's balladic, like I said. It's a bit repetitive, but that can go one of 2 ways if a song is repetitive, because if it's got a decent hook, that could draw the listener in. Having said that, compared to the other 5 songs, it might struggle, but you never know. It's down to the voters of Ireland on the 4th of February. James, what do you think of Brendan Murray's song?
I love the poetry of the lyrics. That's one thing I will say. Not a huge fan of it, admittedly, but listening to it and sort of reading the lyrics, I was like, okay, I get a beautiful story from the lyrics. I like that. Vocally, Brendan's not really my kind of singer, so that sort of puts me off a bit. But yeah, I think everything you've said sort of holds true.
Bogdan, your views on Real Love by Brendan Murray?
Well, this song to me sounded a little bit like an Ed Sheeran song, which is not a bad thing. Having said that, though, I don't think, I'm afraid, that it's not very memorable. I listened to the song, and I listened to it at least 3 times, and I still don't know anything about, like, the sing-along, only like Real Love. That's the only part I remember. So for Eurovision, I think you need a little bit more to be able to sing along to the song and to remember it. It's a lovely song. It's sang from the heart. I think it's lacking of something, unfortunately.
Thanks, Bogdan. Sarah, over to you.
Right. Well, I wasn't quite sure what to make of this, because I wasn't a fan of Dying to Try in 2017. And to be honest, I thought we were going to get something very similar. And I don't think I'm wrong, to be honest. As James said, I like the poetic sort of singing verses. It very much suits Brendan's character. However, I do think it's in great trouble with respect to what it's come up against, because I think it's going to easily get lost. It's not very memorable, although you have to give credit to Brendan. His vocals are definitely there, good, but like Bogdan, I can't remember it, to be honest, and that's pretty bad. If I can't remember a song, then obviously it's not standing out for me, and a song needs to stand out to get any chance of making it through and representing Ireland at Eurovision this year.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Richard, finish off on Brendan.
Yeah, I have to agree with everybody, but with this sort of Irish ballad, I sat there listening to it earlier. I thought, wouldn't it be nice if there's some Irish Gaelic lyrics, just a few within the song as well? Because it's hard to judge all these songs because we've only heard the songs and not any official music videos or performances, but just sort of would have added that extra spark. If Brendan did win the ticket to Turin, what would be his advantage is he's already gone through the process, so he wouldn't have to face that first step as such. He'd go in knowing what to expect, whereas apart from Janet Grogan, who was a backing singer for Rhino Shaughnessy, she'd be the only one that have that. All the others would be going in there blindfolded as such. At least Brendan would know what to expect.
Okay, thank you, Richard, and thanks, team. Song one. Okay, song two we're going to look at is One Night, One Kiss by One Promise by Patrick O'Sullivan. Now, he's from Ballinlough in County Roscommon, and he's got form because there's an Irish music competition called Last Singer Standing, and he won the 2021 edition with a prize of €25,000, so not to be sniffed at, and he beat a certain Janet Grogan. Now, the song, among the writers of the song is Nicky Byrne, again, someone who has form. So, James, tell us about Patrick.
Well, the first thing I noticed about this song is the moment it kicked up, you're like, it's very, very 80s. It's sort of got that 80s vibe to it that sort of has come back in the 20s, which is, you know, really strange, because I remember thinking last year that Eurovision 2021 sounded a lot more 80s than some of the Eurovisions actually were in the 80s, which is kind of an odd feeling. That's not a bad thing, because I think that will tap into a lot of people's taste in music at the moment, so that's good. His voice, I think, suits the style of the song perfectly, and I also just like the feel of the song. It's very upbeat, very up-tempo, and I think a lot of people are going to relate to the lyrics. I think after the last few years, things being so difficult, you know, we're coming out of lockdowns now, we're starting to get back to some kind of normality, and I think people are going to sort of respond to this feeling of the song, that it's like, you know, we're ready to embrace life again and sort of rush out there and see what there is. One night, one kiss, one promise. You know, I can see that a lot of people are going to, you know, really respond well to that. The other thing I really like about it is that it builds quite nicely throughout. Some songs you listen to and they're so formulaic, you can see a key change coming a mile off. This one I feel builds nicely. It's not a jarring key change. It's in there and you can sort of kind of see it coming. But I think all in all, Patrick's done a really good job, and I wouldn't be surprised if this would be one to watch for that ticket to Turin.
Thanks, James. Well done. A few words on Patrick, please.
With pleasure. Well, one of the things I wrote down when I was listening to the song, I said, his voice smells like butter on hot toast. I really love his voice. It's an amazing voice, and yeah, I just love hearing it. I love the song. It gives a good vibe, and he sings with conviction. I do feel though that it would desperately need like a gospel choir or something, especially towards the end, where the key change is happening, to give it a little bit more. It has a good moment, but I think a gospel choir at the end would be absolutely amazing and would give it a top notch. But well done.
Thanks, Bogdan. Sarah, your take on One Night, One Kiss, One Promise.
I'm in agreement with Bogdan and James, really. I think it's got a lot of potential. For me, it started off a little bit slowly, and I thought, you know, I was just waiting for it to sort of start building up and then sort of reaching that sort of crescendo moment, you know. And I agree with Bogdan. I think a gospel choir coming in at some point, you know, maybe sort of might help. It'd be interesting to see how he stages the actual act, because as we know, quite often what happens on the staging can make or break a song, and I think this is one of them. I think if he can sell it on the stage, there's no reason why he shouldn't be in the running for the ticket to Turin at all. I liked it a lot, and I thought it's got a great positive message with it. As James said, you know, we've had these last couple of years which has been dreadful. We've been in and out of lockdown, and it sort of gives that nice positive vibe and message across, and I think people will pick up on that. Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. Richard, over to you.
I agree with everything that everybody else has said. You can definitely hear a story form throughout the song, which you don't necessarily get in all 6 songs in this national selection. And I just felt like there's potential for foot tapping throughout. It's sort of the song you could see performed in an Irish pub, you know, with a band around it. I just got that image in my head, but overall, yeah, potential.
Richard, right, yeah, what have I got? I've got, it's a very clever lyric. I just think that potentially it could be a bit too clever. Nothing wrong with the clever lyric, but again, if it gets through, you're singing to people whose first language isn't necessarily English. It's going to need a big production, this. I can see it with a massive, massive production if it gets to Turin. Again, I fear that the stage for the Late Late Show is not that big. So that might not show off this song to its true potential. If it wins, quits in, but it's got to get there first. Who knows? Right, moving on. Our next song is I'm Loving Me by Rachel Good. Now, she's from Ballinasloe in County Galway. And this song has been written by, excuse the pronunciations here, but Joachim Evrenius, Anna Eng, Johan Moitzen, and Thomas Carlson. As you can tell, they're not necessarily Irish names. Bogdan's going to lead on to this one. Over to you.
Thank you, John. Well, this song just screams Eurovision, doesn't it? For me, it has all the elements that we would usually hear in a Eurovision song. It has a good beat, you can sing along, it's a bit anthemic, and also talking about the theme, it's about self-love in the end, and don't be afraid to change, of changing, which it's a good message after all. It also has a key change, which is another feature of a Eurovision song. So everything about it screams Eurovision. It reminds me a little bit of Cascada, and maybe in some ways from Greece. It reminds me of Greece from last year, which is not a bad thing. I think I need to hear this song live to make a permanent decision, but it could be one of the songs that could potentially.
Thanks, Bogdan. Sarah, what are your views on this song?
I agree with Bogdan. I think it's probably one of the most Eurovision sounding songs of the whole bunch that we've got here, apart from one other, which I'll be talking about in a little while. But yes, it's fresh, it's modern. I think it was, if depending on how she stages it, I think it's one that she could easily sell to a large audience. Whether that will come across in the Late Late Show, I don't know, because as you said, John, the staging is very small on there, so it might be just difficult to judge on that particular performance. But yeah, be interesting. So yeah, I sort of give it a thumbs up.
Thanks, Sarah. Richard?
I put nice modern disco beat, and then the other thing I put was wonder if it has any Scandi influence. Now, hearing who the songwriters are, I can now understand why I'm getting that Scandi sound from. And yeah, it's a potential to qualify for the semi-final. Yeah.
It's Richard. Yeah, yes, I heard this, and before I looked up who the writers were, it screamed, absolutely screamed Melody Festival and about it. It ticks every one of those boxes. It's upbeat, it's catchy. There's a slight 1980s vibe to it. There's a key change you can see from Mars. They're all familiar ingredients that have worked in the past, so it could well work this time too. James, finish off the review of this song.
I can only echo what everyone else has said. I think it's easily one of my favourite songs from the selection. I fell in love with it on the first listen. The one tiny little thing, and I don't know if this is just me or if it's like Bogdan said, I need to hear it live to be sure. But I feel like it's maybe the tempo needs to be adjusted, or there's something slightly off. No, I have no idea what that is. But every time I listen to it, I'm like, I feel like this could maybe be faster or, in a different key. But other than that, I think it's brilliant. I really, really love it, even with those critiques. And Yeah, I think it's the kind of thing that if it went to Eurovision, I think there's enough of that sort of 80s sound that's contemporary now. There's enough sort of Euro nostalgia in there. I could see this doing well.
James, thanks team. So that's 3 songs down and 3 to go. Song 4 in our review is going to be reviewed by Sarah, and it is That's Rich by Brooke Scullion. Now she's from Derry, so she's a Derry girl. The song has been co-written by her and Izzy Warner and Carl Zine. Sarah, give us your take on That's Rich by Brooke Scullion.
Right, well, and the last review we're talking about Rachel's song, and we felt that had a bit of a Scandi influence, and I have to say that I think that is also the case with That's Rich. In fact, they could have more or less had the same songwriters. Now, Brooke says that her influences are Blondie and Avril Lavigne. Certainly there's a little bit of an element of Blondie comes in there with all the electro pop sort of that kind of songs that we heard from Blondie, sort of for those who are old enough to remember back to the late 70s, early 80s, you know, songs like Atomic. Yeah, it's definitely got an electro pop feel. Now I do like this sort of music. I do confess to that fact that I do. I do think it's one that could easily have entered Melody Festival Ireland. It's got very 80s vibes along with it, which is where you get the Blondie influence from. It's got a beat to it. It's catchy. I think the problem with it is that, and this is just a small criticism, I think it's going to be like a lot of the electro pop songs that we've all heard before in Melody Festival Ireland, in Eurovision itself. And I sort of just wonder whether it's actually got that strength in it to actually carry it through and win the national final. I think, again, this is going to be another song that's going to depend on the staging and how Brooke sells it. But I do think it is going to be a contender on the night.
Thank you. Richard, over to you.
This was the one song that was leaked ahead of its official launch on the week of reveals on the radio. To me, Brooke is trying to come across as rock, but to me it's more dancey, so typical Eurovision bop. But yeah, it's a potential.
Hey, thanks, Richard. Yeah, I saw this one. Nicely upbeat, and you like a good upbeat song. Definitely a foot tapper. Bit on the formulaic side for me. As I said earlier, formulaic isn't always a bad thing. I still think it could be up against stronger songs in this national final, but who knows? James, your go.
I'm inclined to agree with you, John. I feel that it's very formulaic, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, I felt like when I was listening to it, it felt like a long 3 minutes in places, which I think is sort of not a great start. Musically, I think it's good. It's got that driving beat there. I can see people wanting to, move along to it. The lyrics, I think any Eurovision song that says "Hey, stupid" to get your attention is a bit like, oh, okay, it's just a bit jarring. But yeah, I think it's actually one of the more modern sounding songs in this selection. I think it has the potential to do well in a 6-song final. If it got to Eurovision, though, I'm slightly less optimistic. I sort of agree with Sarah that, in a bigger pool, it might get lost.
Thanks, James. And last but not least, Bogdan, what do you think of this song?
Well, for me, this screams televote winner. It is the only song that gets stuck into your head from the first listening. And for me, that is the winner of the televote. Who is going to remember, after all the songs have finished, which song will you remember? This one. This is the one that I will remember, and I can even sing it along to it afterwards from the first listen. The thing is, I'm not sure the stage at the late night show will be big enough for this song as well, because Brooke needs a choreography. This song, you cannot just stay at the stand mic and have it in front of you and sing That's Rich. It won't cut it. For this one, you have to have a really well staged choreography and a memorable one as well. Maybe something we can dance along or something to do, I don't know, to copy. So yeah, it depends on how well she portrays the songs and how well she conveys it, yeah, to the audience. But it's a memorable song, and I think it's going to do really well with the televote.
Thanks, Bogdan. I mean, as it is with all of these, we've only heard audio versions, so we've no idea how these are going to look on a stage. And as Sarah said, a staging can make or break a song. So I'll have to wait and see. So song number 5, if I've got my calculations right, is Yeah, We're Gonna Get Out of It, performed by Miles Graham. Now he's co-written it with Justin Broad, and he's co-written it with Justin Broad. Now he's from Clondalkin, which is in County Dublin, so he's might even get the local audience on his side. And over to Richard to lead on this one.
Like John's just said, we've judged all these on audio versions, and to me, this was the hardest to critique. So I'll start off with the positive. It's very modern sounding, and you do get a hint of storytelling throughout, but you know, not constantly. However, I just found it very repetitive. It sounded like the verses and choruses just merged into one sort of long list of sentences, and to me, it didn't really go anywhere. And unfortunately, like Brendan's song, I can't see it getting the points, to be honest with you. Sorry.
Thanks. Well, I thought someone mentioned Ed Sheeran earlier. I think this one's got a bit of Ed Sheeran about it. It's something that he might have written, maybe not as a lead track, but maybe an album track. It's not bad. I've heard better. I've heard worse. I think it's again, it's a tad formulaic, but it might depend on the staging, really. James, your take on Miles Graham's song?
This was an interesting one for me because the moment it started up, I was like, oh, I actually quite like this with the beat. As soon as I heard sort of trumpets in there, I just sort of had flashbacks to James Newman in Rotterdam, which was a bit of a concern. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think this song hits a lot of notes. I think the chorus is definitely an earworm, so that's good. And I think it hits a lot of notes in the sense there are a lot of things that have happened over the last few years that are referenced in the lyrics. And I think that could sort of tap into people's minds. The one thing I'll say about it hitting a lot of notes, though, is, you know, is it going to go over people's heads? That's the one thing, you know, will that sort of side of the song go over it? But no, overall, I was quite pleasantly surprised by this.
Thanks, James. Well, then, what do you think?
Well, if I may, another metaphor. I said another one. His voice is like chocolate, hot chocolate on a cold night. Because I absolutely love his voice as well. That's a positive side, or was a positive comment from me. Because the negative is that the song is really predictable. Once you hear a few seconds, you don't know it's going to be on, and I was right. It's kind of repetitive, except the trumpet part, which was okay. It's not a change in the song. But it's radio friendly, and I like that part of it. So I don't know how it will go. I want to hear it live to be able to judge it properly.
Radio friendly is not always a bad thing, is it?
Yeah, it's a good effort.
Yeah. Sarah, over to you.
Right, well, echo what everybody else has said, really. My concern is that it sounds like a very nice radio song, but is it going to just stop at sounding like a very nice radio song? I just feel it needs a little bit more oomph about it if it's going to stand any chance of doing well on the night. And I do feel it's a little bit repetitive in parts. And if I'm honest, it was one that I easily forgot. I had to give it 2 or 3 listens, you know, to actually sort of get a grasp of it. Not my favourite, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. Right, our final song tonight is Ashes of Yesterday, performed by Janet Grogan. Now, it's been written by Aidan O'Connor, John Emile and Sandra Wikström. So again, there's another Nordic influence on that. Janet, again, has Eurovision history. She was a backing singer in 2016 for Nicky Byrne and 2018 for Ryan O'Shaughnessy. So she's actually had the taste of being in a Eurovision Grand Final. The only performer tonight who has. She's charted in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And again, she featured in Last Singer Standing, which finished at the end of 2021. So there's quite a bit to take in there. Now, when I listened to it, I thought this has something of Adele about it. It's that sort of song, I thought. Nicely constructed with a modern sound. Again, Adele has just released another album, and so I think it might strike a chord there. It builds, and it's quite positive, and it, like several of these, this will suit a really big stage. Maybe not to start with, but as the song builds towards the end, it needs a big stage and a big production. In that respect, if it could suit a small stage and a big stage, then maybe it might have a slight advantage on the Late Show. Remains to be seen. James, what's your views on this song?
Again, this was one of the few songs that I heard and sort of got instantly. But oh yeah, you know, that's nice. I enjoy that. It's that sort of contest staple of being a ballad, but it's very gentle and uplifting, which I think is, you know, as you said, you mentioned Adele. I mean, Adele's maybe not so uplifting with her ballads occasionally, but I think where we are in the early 2020s, that sort of, we need that sort of gentle uplifting and, you know, to rise from the ashes of yesterday. So I think, again, there's a lot that works with this song. To me, it's definitely one of the standouts of the Irish National Selection this year, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if we're all talking about this song going to Turin.
James, Bogdan, over to you.
Well, Jenny talked about Adele. I noted in my notes, Emily de Sande and a mix of the Mamas. That's how I saw it. I love that she has a powerful voice, and it's an empowering song. However, I think it lacks a bit of power, especially in the chorus. The chorus I want more. And again, like the other songs I mentioned earlier, if she could bring a gospel choir to help her give that come on, give it to us, because yeah, it's a good song, but it needs a bit more kick.
Thanks, Bogdan. Sarah, what do you think of the song Ashes of Yesterday?
I'm with Bogdan on this one. I think it's a lovely song. I think it's very, very Adele-esque. I do think it needs a bit more oomph about it. It needs more power in there. She definitely needs to go in there with backing singers. I don't think this is one that, I know a lot of Adele's songs she performs on her own, but I think something like this, she needs backing singers to give it that power that it needs to come across well on stage. But other than that, yeah, I loved it.
Sarah, and last but certainly not least, Richard, over to you.
I thought it was very modern sounding, and I could actually hear the raw emotion in her voice. That's probably one of the few I've heard in all these 6 songs. And to pay a massive compliment to both Janet and the songwriters, I could actually, considering we haven't seen a performance of this, I could picture this in a Melody Festival Ireland final. And that's a big national final, but I couldn't picture any of the other 5 necessarily in a big national final like that. And to me, if Janet did go to Turin, I could see her taking this to the final. How well she'd do in the final, I couldn't say, but it is a possibility.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, team. Right, now we've heard all the 6 songs. What we're going to do is vote on them, and we're going to do it in sort of Eurovision style. So we're going to have a 12, a 10, an 8, a 7, a 6, and a 5. So everyone's going to get at least 25 points. Isn't that nice? So we're going to start with James. Give us your scores, please.
Okay, so firstly, I'd like to award 5 points to Brooke.
Brooke, 5 points.
And 6 points to Brendan.
Brendan, 6.
7 points to Graham.
Graham, 7.
8 points to Patrick.
8 points to Patrick.
10 points to Janet, and of course 12 to Rachel.
10 to Janet, and 12 to Rachel. Of course, Graham, it's Miles Graham meant. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Thank you for your votes. Bogdan, what are yours?
It was very difficult to decide, but here I go. 5 points to Brendan.
5 points to Brendan. That puts him on 11.
6 points to Miles.
Points to Miles. That puts him on 13.
7 points to Janet.
7 points to Janet. That puts her on 17.
8 points to Patrick O'Sullivan.
Points to Patrick. That puts him on 16.
10 points to Rachel Good.
Points to Rachel. That puts her on 22.
And 12 points to Brooke.
12 points to Brooke. That puts her on 17. So we've currently got Rachel in the lead. Sarah, are you going to change things?
Well, we'll see. Very difficult decision, but here are my scores. So I've given 5 points to Brendan.
5 points to Brendan. That puts him on 16.
6 points to Miles.
To Miles. That puts him on 19.
7 points to Patrick.
7 points to Patrick. That puts him on 23.
8 points to Janet.
Points to Janet. That puts her on 25.
10 points to Rachel.
10 points to Rachel. That puts her on 32.
And finally, the 12 points go to Brooke.
And Brooke, 12 points. That puts her on 29. So we currently have, after 3 votes, we have Rachel on 32, Brooke on 29, and Janet on 25. Richard.
Right, 5 points go to Miles.
5 points to Miles. That puts him on 24.
6 points to Brendan.
Points to Brendan. That puts him on 22.
7 to Brooke.
7 to Brooke. That puts her on 36.
8 to Patrick.
8 to Patrick. That puts him on 31.
10 to Rachel.
10 to Rachel. That puts her on 42.
And 12 to Janet.
12 to Janet. That puts her on 37. So Rachel on 42, Janet on 37, Brooke on 36. Right, here's how I voted. Sorry, Brendan, it's a 5 from me. That puts you on 27. And 6 points goes to Brooke. Puts her on 42. My 7 points goes to Miles. Puts him on 31. My 8 points go to Patrick. Puts him on 39. 10 points go to Rachel. Put her on 52. And my 12 go to Janet, which puts her on 49. So, as you, dear viewer and dear listener, can see from the graphics, we've got Rachel is our favourite on 52 points, closely followed by Janet on 49, Brooke on 42. We'll just do the top 3. It's not fair to do this. So there we have it. We've reviewed the 6 songs. Tell us what you think. Do you agree with our choices? Is there something that we've completely missed? Should Staggy have got more airtime? A final question is, assuming, let's say Rachel or maybe Janet get through to the get the golden ticket to Turin. And I'll start with James. How do you think they could make it out of the semi-final and put up a good performance in the grand final?
I think that any of our top 3 that we've mentioned would be sort of a safe bet or Ireland's best bet to get into the final. I'm sure that any of those artists, if they make it to the final in Turin, they would give the performance of a lifetime and do Ireland proud. Ireland have quite a difficult road to the final these days, but let's hope that with everything changing, you know, in 2022, this is another change we'll see and welcome Ireland back to the Eurovision final.
James. Bogdan, can Ireland make it out the semi-final?
I agree with James. Any of those 3 songs can make it. But we need a good staging. Yeah, give us something memorable, something that we'll remember. Yeah, I agree. Top 3 can make it.
Bogdan. Sarah, over to you.
Yes, I'm in agreement. I think any of those three can get Ireland through to the final. But what I would say is a lot is going to hang on the staging. And what I hope is they get the stage, whoever it goes through gets the staging just right. Don't make it too overcomplicated like this, like last year, because I think unfortunately that did let Leslie down quite a bit with what was otherwise a good song. So please, Ireland, get it right this year.
Thanks, Sarah. Richard.
My worry with Rachel is 3 or 4 songs like hers could all sound the same. And if that happens, because obviously we don't know all the songs yet, they will cancel each other out. Whereas I think Janet's is slightly more different. There's the emotion in it, and she's also already had the experience of Eurovision, so she knows what to expect. And I can see Janet getting Ireland to the final, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, I think I like you. The top 3 that we've picked in this little vote, definitely potential for making it to the grand final. Obviously, we don't know what they're up against, and we won't do for a few weeks yet. But I think those that they could be quietly confident, but as we've said throughout this, it's all going to depend on staging. Get that staging wrong, and it turns a surefire qualifier into a borderline. So yeah, so as we said, do you agree with us? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Have we missed something completely? Tell us what you think in the comments below. So we're going to sign off now. So it's goodbye from me. It's goodbye from James.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.
And Bogdan.
Bye, everyone.
And Sarah.
Bye, everyone.
And Richard.
Bye.
Thanks for watching again, and goodbye.